We're just cruising along in our Spitfire building program, and I'm trying to, all of the things that people sent in here, this is still photos from Howard Rush's book, just get them all on video so we can all share them at a very nice, convenient, easy way. Again, this is the late model one, big rudder, bubble canopy, Griffin engine. And I'll tell you, I've just gone through, I bet you I've spent 40 hours looking at this book already. I've stopped watching television at night so I could read more and more about Spitfires. Really, really interesting. You never have too many books. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to build bookshelves in my living room. Accumulated so many things about Spitfires. I have it all in a drawer over there, and it's getting too big for the drawer. I'm definitely going to have to do something just to store the Spitfire stuff. This makes you sick. The book is all full of pictures of crashes too. Unbelievable. These are drop tanks and rockets, and another late model one here. The larger fin, the radiused fin, the bubble canopy. The different version on the spats, the doubled up spats. Notice this is the first Seafire ever built. There's the hook. Here's a great photo to end the titling with. Down to the shop. I just can't wait. See, I need my little inspiration. Now, as I do every day, I start the day by cleaning out my molds, harvesting all the shells, which I've already done. And today I want to work with, not exclusively, but I want to work on that turtle deck, decide if that's how I want to do a piece. Remember, the turtle deck piece, if you've seen the previous couple of videos, I made 3 shells, they're 32nd wood, and I want to do an epoxy laminate, so I need to use the shell twice. It's not like I can put it away and it's done, so I'm going to run that shell. That'll be the next thing I work on, in fact. The nose pieces I'm making up, I got a really, really nice piece of wood from John DeTavio to make an extra mold shell, and I want to give Adamusco a couple extra shells when he comes down, so he'll have extra to work with. I also have, I've ordered, and I haven't gotten it yet, some 4-inch wide wood that I think will be a lot nicer to use. I won't be right on the razor edge for the bottom block shell. 4-inch wood is the way to go. So one of the things that I've learned, just to recap, a couple of things. If you're going to buy Ace bandages, buy the ones that stick to themselves. The other ones are a pain in the ass, and I'm going to replace all of mine with sticky back ones very soon. Number 2, when you buy wood, if you're going to make these shells, it's a lot more convenient to use 4-inch wood than 3-inch wood, and if you're going to make long shells, buy 48-inch wood. The trick here is it's not like buying a block. When you buy a block, you have to look for the lightest possible block you can find. When you're making a shell, look for the best grain, nice, straight, flexible A-grain wood. It isn't really critical how light the wood is because you use so little of it. A grain or two doesn't even matter. And I also have to do the test, and this is going to be what I'm basically going to be working on today. I want to run this mold with the laminated shell, and I want to then try to run one with maybe with ambroid glue, and I'm still going over this in my mind. Maybe one with the grain running in a little bit opposite direction. I have a whole bunch of 32nd inch wood, and I want to try that. So a lot of ideas. I want to get cranking. I'll load up all my molds with ammoniazed wood, get them over by the heating vent, and then I can work on that turtle deck today. Now, in loading up the molds today, one of the things I had that I thought was a little bit of a an improvement over the previous method was, I want to show this up on a camera before I squeeze it down. I'm just getting the first of the ace bandages on here. What I did, I put a lot of, let's get this on a macro lens. A lot of little saw teeth in here. It's difficult to focus with this here. Okay, here we go. I put a lot of little saw teeth in here so that when I run the bandage down over the end, it gets a nice. Now the three pieces I made up, and you can see each one here. Each one, let's get this on about. Each one has the line where the wire, the edge wire, shows through. So what I want to do, before I laminate these together, I want to trim everything except maybe the last eighth of an inch, just to make for a neater when I put it on back on the mold the second time. I want that to be a little bit neater. I'll mix up some epoxy, thin it out, and get ready to mold these up. That edge wire went through all three of the pieces, which makes it real handy for doing this. And this is just to make it a little more convenient. I think you could even eliminate this step if you wanted to. Now to do this lamination, what I want to do, I want to use the epoxy where one tube is twice the size of the other. And I want to for sure use the heat gun to thin this out and spread it out pretty much like we're doing a foam wing. However, there's a lot of other ideas that I've had and I've been thinking about, and of course I think about this constantly. Ambroid would probably be a material of choice too. Ambroid would probably be a decent choice, but we're going to mix this up, trowel it on, and get one of the laminates into the mold. And one of the tricks with this epoxy, of course, is to get it hot. It's got to be hot or it's going to be too thick on the part. Get it good and pearly. As soon as it starts to turn pearly, you know it's kind of ready. A little bit of heat with the heat gun and this will be ready to put on. Now here's a good little tip for you if you're working alone, and I'm in the shop alone today. Tape the little epoxy thing down, makes it easier, and then always have a can ready, and the edge, see, this is from yesterday doing George's wing. You can always wipe the trowel on the edge of the can. It makes it real easy to do it. Good little tip. And one of the things, I'm putting the first shell right up on the mold and just getting the minimum, and I mean this is the minimum of epoxy here. You certainly don't need to put more than the thinnest possible layer. And you really don't have to go all the way out to the very edge either, because you can run thin CA into that edge. What I do want to do though is get a little bit extra right up along the top edge, so you know the clumsy people that we have around here launching planes, they always put their fingernail into the turtle deck. Trying to do is, of course, warm it up and get every little bit off, just like when you're doing fiberglass. Just want a paper thin minimum amount of epoxy on here, and I'm leaving a little bit extra on the spine. I think that'll give it a little extra strength. Back here by the rudder, it really doesn't matter. We're going to notch this all out for the tail. And one thing I want to make sure I do here, because I can picture this happening to me, I want to take the shell off, make sure I don't have any epoxy on the mold, which I don't. Hey, amazing. Put the first shell on, line it up, get the second shell on. Drop this one right over this one. Try to get the same alignment. Now this has a couple little pieces that are missing in the back here. I can just fill these in with the little pieces that are missing. Doesn't have to be too fancy. Give this a little push down. Now I can do the same thing. Get a little epoxy on this. The heat allows you to get almost all the extra off without a problem. Again, we still have to do one with ambroid. That'll be nice. I know ambroid works well on this kind of a thing. I've laminated stuff with ambroid already. And I know Adamusco loves ambroid. He builds the wings with ambroid, so I know he'll be in favor of that, that's for sure. Now, as I'm going along here, I thought of one additional thing you could do. I'm sorry I didn't do it here. Is in between the layers of balsa wood, you could run some thin fiberglass cloth, a 0.5 ounce cloth. Maybe we'll give that a try. You could run that right inside. That would be kind of cool. Anyway, more ideas as they come along. As I'm thinking this stuff through, it is that little piece jumping out here. Come on, get the hell in there. Boy, I'll tell you, Murphy's Law, if any little thing can go wrong here. Yeah, you could run fiberglass cloth. You could run that, another thing, you could run that carbon fiber mat, that real thin stuff. A lot of little things we could be trying here. This is one of the jobs that it's always better if you have a helper here, and I always try to improvise and figure ways that I can work on my own, but it would be handy if we had somebody here to hold a part or hold a hairdryer, one or the other. Now the only little spot I have, this crazy little spot where there's a piece, I want to press that down. Thin the epoxy and just keep cleaning the trowel. You'll be amazed how little epoxy you need on a job like this. Okay, I got all three of the pieces on there now. And just line everything up, and then I can get out the ace bandage and wrap it up. Now the tighter I can press this down, of course, the better, and then I'm going to hit it with a heat gun. That'll thin the epoxy even more. Make sure I'm not losing the straightness here. Because these shells are already pre-molded, they really go together nice. This really is a nice, assuming this is going to work. We'll find out. More later. I have that bottom block with the two laminates too. Now it's always handy just to be able to wipe all the stuff on the top of a can and just take a screwdriver and pop it out the next day when it's dry. Another thing too this lets you do is you'll know when your epoxy is kicked off, because it'll kick off up here just a little before, because this is in a bigger mass. It'll kick off here and you know you have about 5 minutes more working time back on the part. Now I have a little bit of a time saver here in the fact that I already have this bottom block fit onto one of the fuselages and I want to replicate it. Now, when I got the final sanding on the front, the contour and everything. I want to marry it into here. I want to press it way down and make sure I'm right in that wire line. I don't want to miss that wire line, and I don't want to trim this either too small or too large. But having one that's already fit to a fuselage is a big help here. And I can then leave the line on when I trim this and do the rest with the block sander. Having that sandpaper taped to the table is a big help too. Right on the, actually, this is the kind of stuff that saves you time now. Now you want to make the second fuselage. You already have one part that fits. Boom, it's done. Now, here's a thought for you. Again, this is just a thought. If you're going to make, let's say this is going to be a Chablinski special. Now, you make the mold, whatever, you make the first plane. Well, you know what? Make an extra block, an extra sheet right then and there. And as you get the first one all fit to the fuselage, in other words, what I'm saying is this one is already fit to the fuselage. Really close, just needs minor trimming, and it needs the little piece in the back. This fit, well, why not use this for a template? Actually, you could even make a third one just to use for a template to make sure you're in everything within the range that you want it to be in. Now what I can do is I can use this over and over again, and at the end of the Spitfire project, whichever block I decide not to use here, what I'm doing, I'm going to hopefully use up the best of the blocks on the plane, but the ones that don't come out so good, I can use them for patterns. So it'll serve two purposes here. So, you know, one of the things you want to for sure do is, now you have that line on there, you want to cut this, and I put a brand new number 11 blade in here, and I want to cut it leaving the line on. I'll do the final little bit of material removal with the sandpaper. Because if you make this too small, it's going to be hard to fill it with little pieces. If you leave it too big, it's not a big deal. In a couple of swipes of the sandpaper, you can cut it right down. But you sure don't want to undercut it right now. Now what I did, I put this block in position, and I had to take that, I've done this already on tape, I had to take that little pie slice out. So I'm just tacking this together right over the fuselage itself. You just run the blade and that little sanding block through, and it gives you this way we're getting a block to line up right over it. There's plenty of meat. This is 1/8 inch wood. There's plenty of meat here. I want to get it lined up right over that. When I go to the sanding table, I'll sand this right down. Now another way, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, another thing I used to have is I used to take some spray contact cement and contact cement the sandpaper right to the table, but I guess too lazy to do it this time. This seems to be working okay though. I want to see, you need this edge before you can set the cowling line. I'm trying to do this in a logical set of steps that make sense that you can apply to pretty much any plane. And you need to have this piece set in place at the right height before we can go ahead and finalize the fit on a cowling. So we need that edge around a cowling, and I'll tape this in place and then we'll work on that cowling edge. Now one way, if you're not completely sure you have a flat edge here, is you can take the same way we did when we undersized the molds, run an ink marker along the whole edge, turn it over and sand that mark off, and you'll just take about 5/1000ths of wood off. But you want to have this whole edge flat, because don't forget, this is going to mate, and I want to start making sure I haven't sanded too far. This is going to mate. It's just a little bit oversized. You can press it into position. It'll have just the right angle. It'll be perfect. Now one of the things that would be handy if we had the mold, I would lay this piece right on the mold itself and do the sanding, but since the mold is being used to make another part, I'll just do it very carefully. I don't want to put a final sanding. I just want to have it smooth enough that I can get all my contours. When Joe actually assembles his model and I actually assemble mine, the final thing will be, of course, to get a nice fine sanding with 400 sandpaper before you put any dope or anything on it. But this is just for my own I like to work with parts that are sanded or half finished. The reason being, I always can, in my mind's eye, see how this is going to look when it's finished. So this is really just for my own benefit. Now, when I get this on, the next step is to get that cowl to fit up here. I've just roughed this out from an ink line off of the other part. Get that cowl set. By the way, any little, the bandages leave little marks in the wood. It doesn't matter, they sand right out. Maybe I'm pressing these bandages too hard, I don't know. Maybe I should be a little more gently when I pull them tight. I don't need to pull them that strong. They sand right out though. Now from this point in the project on, each block will be mated to each part. I won't try to make it that I can, it'll just be extra work for nothing, that I can make that say each bottom block fits on each plane. This fuselage and this block now become mates. Mates for life. Hey, that's a good a good concept. Anyway, what I want to do, I want to get this angle in here with a sanding block. That's the next thing. Get my cowl mounts made and then get my cowl finalized, the fit finalized on here. But then from the cowlings, and I have 1, 2, 5 of them, of the 5 cowls I want to get one that fits, and it'll then become a mate to this. You can see how nice I taped that bottom block on, and it's a virtual perfect fit. And I'm just guessing that is probably the nicest bottom block. It's 10 grams. I don't think you can get it any lighter than that. It's just perfect. So looks like we're making some progress here anyway. Next thing is get that all fit up. And once I get this final fit, what I want to do is take some thin CA and I want to just harden up this edge, because I'm going to work off of this edge now as I do all the cowl alignments. I want to harden this whole deal up, let it kick off, and get in there with another sanding block and make sure I have a perfect edge on everything. Now that glue has hardened up the edge real nice, and I can really get a final edge on there. I can work off my cowling now. You can see how even just taking ice shavings off of here, how you can just get a nice blend. Now what we do want to do is after, when we assemble a model for the final time, is get in here with some 64th plywood and wrap this around. I wouldn't want to just have a balsa to balsa joint here. I'd want to have something inside, even maybe some carbon fiber, some glass cloth, something in here to stiffen this up. And of course we'll have the glass on the outside, and this would be a good place to put 2 layers of glass instead of 1, right around that joint. This is where you'll always have idiots picking up the plane by the front and guys with rings and dings and whatever. Okay, I got 5 choices here for the cowling. This one I was going to use to make a mold. This one I made a little bit thicker than it had to be. This is a little too heavy right now. And I got the 2 new ones I harvested and this one. So what I'm going to do is take a fresh one, trim it all around, get it on a plywood base, and start doing the fitting on that fuselage. Doing a final little finishing off by hand here. And while I'm doing this and making a mess, I may as well get all of these out of the way. This way I'll have the extra cowls in inventory. So once you set up to make a mess, you may as well get it over with. Now the next step here is I glued this with thin CA right down to a piece of 64th plywood. I want that for my edge so I can develop the edge, and that'll give me a nice hard, even surface that I can work around. Well, fuselage is buried. I'm going to want to have this edge and the edge of this cowling just really nice sandwich mates. Now this is where the fitting starts. It's just from this point on, everything, this cowling will fit that fuselage, and I want to get all the fits as tight and as straight as possible. And that just gets into an area that's relatively time consuming, but when you're finished you have that beautiful cowl fit that I like anyway. Now I want to make up a nose ring. This is going to actually get attached to the cowling and be my front hold down point. And you can see I've got a little bit, let's try and get this on the macro, a little bit of clearance here. So what I can either do is file or sand this side a little bit, or just fill that with 64th plywood, and that'll establish. Now see, I have this nice, this is holding this in position, everything is holding something in position, and I'll get a perfect cowl fit here without a whole lot of extra work. So I'm just going to cut that nose ring out. Let me just think of it. Cut the nose ring and then tack glue it in position. You can see the little bit of an angle I've sanded in here to leave a little extra material. And I've just got this tack glued in place. And as I'm actually using a nose ring to set that angle and set the other angle. Now I've made everything just a little bit larger than it has to be so it can be block sanded in. Now I'm centering this all up, and I'm going to drill a hole for the pin. I had it a little bit off on one side. I corrected it, and I'll just drill that 1/8 inch. That's for my nose pin. Now eventually I'm going to put that little piece of music wire pin in there, but I'm trying to get it as high up into the ring as possible. It makes alignment, and I need a little bit of an angle up, a little bit of a tooth angle up, just for that alignment. Now the next step is going to be, I want to hollow this out for the engine. I want to hollow this nose ring part out, and I want to just leave myself a little lip here. Just give myself a little guideline to work up to here. Nothing accurate here. I just want to leave like 1/8 of an inch of edge on there. Yeah, working right up to that edge. Just dressing this off inside and out, and then we'll get over there and see if we can make up the top cowl mount. Now what I did, I just interpolated, roughed out what I hope will be an accurate little cowl mount hold down piece. So what I'm going to do is cut this out, and then I have to bevel that angle in. I'll have to do that either by hand or with a sanding block, and then I'll put the cowling in place and drill the hole in the cowl and the mount both at the same time. need to get that little bevel on because this piece is going to go in at an angle. Now, of course, you just got to fiddle and fiddle and fiddle until you get this angle just right. Once you get the angle right, the part will fit right in, fit like a glove. Now, a good idea is just to get this in position. I put some slow, thick CA in there. I want to kick it. Now what I want to do is, I don't want to take the whole top block off. I just want to get back in here and harden that wood up. And I'll put a little, some kind of bracing back there, a little balsa block or something later, but this will just hold it until, well, I can drill a hole. Now I tack glued this just so I could keep this from shifting and get it centered. Now before I drill a hole, I want to beef this up. This is only 64th plywood. I want to lay in a piece of 1/8 inch plywood into that little corner. I'll chamfer it so that when I go down, I'm going to be going through 2 pieces of 1/8 inch plywood with the bolt. See, I can just trace the outer piece, trace the inner piece here, and then I know roughly how much of this I need to chamfer to get that piece to fit right in there. See how nice that little piece fits in, nice and tight? I could build a little, come on out of there. I could build a glue fillet up in there now. And then I can drill a hole through the cowling and through the fuse mount, all at the same time with the cowling in position. This will give everything self-alignment. I'm getting that right into position while the CA kicks off just a little bit. Now what this is a little piece of 1/8 inch music wire. Whoa, it's rolling away. Son of a gun has legs of its own. Oh, oh. Roll. You believe this? Anyway, I wanted to show that I put a chamfer on one side, the side that's going to be the pin, and some knurls, serrations on the other side so it gets a good bite in the cowling. This is going to go in the cowling, and this will be the locator pin for the front of the cowl hold down. Now there's a couple of tricks to this. That pin has to be angled just a little bit, and you have to put the hole in here at an angle, because see, you're going in at an angle. That bolt does not come straight out. It goes on a little bit of an angle, or else you're never going to be able to get the cowling on and off. It's going to be a pain in the ass. So with that in mind, just angle that pin up just a little bit. I'm just marking up the spot where I want to get that bolt to go through. See, the idea is this holds it in alignment while you drill that hole. Now everything in theory should line up real accurately. Now what I always like to do with any Allen bolts, I overcut the hole in the fiberglass here for a piece of aluminum tubing. I don't want to just have an Allen bolt sticking its head up, so I need to make a pie slice on this. I want to line that hole with aluminum tubing. And I can just cut on that line and I should have it pretty close. Now the easiest way that I've done this in the past is I just get some CA on here and try to get the CA inside. And because this is really soft aluminum, a couple of swipes with the sandpaper takes it right down, no problem at all. Yeah, I always like that. The little detail touches, and that's one of them. Around a tip weight box, anywhere where you have a screw coming out. This really gives it a nice, what I think, a little finished look. You just cut the edge with a number 11 blade, countersink it. Now I ground away all this extra material here. I want to get a smooth flow in here, and I'll sand the rest of this by hand with a dowel. Smooth airflow, and I want to make the air exits in the back here. Now what I want to do, I want to work on my air ducting. What I did, I followed this line of reference, and what I want to do is put a bulkhead in at exactly the same angle. Right here I'll make up, well, some cross-grain balsa and make that little half-moon bulkhead, but I'd like to keep it on exactly the same angle if I can. That's kind of a little trial and error. Just making up some scrap pieces here, picking up the spots where it's hard and trimming it. And I want to pick up this cowl angle, which will pick the angle up of the deflector in there. You just keep sanding off the high spots until you have a template. See, now I've gone too far. I'll just use the parts that I know fit. I know this fits well, and I have to angle this out about 1/8 of an inch on each side. A little too aggressive on the sanding here. But once I get this pattern made up, then I want to make this piece up out of cross-grain balsa, of course. And even if you have to repeat this process 100 times, it's worth it because you need a nice fit here. Now, making this piece 4 laminates of 32nd, so it'll in effect be balsa plywood. I just tack glued that former in. I want to get a nice angle fit on it. I'm going to get that perfectly smooth so that'll drop right on the other parts of the fuse. Now see, I want one bulkhead to mate up to the other one to make like an air dam so that the air will go out the ducting. Now of course, now I need to, whoops. With these two pieces lining up, I assume we're going to get some good air. I got to figure out how I want to do the outlet holes here. Now I've been just hacking out a rough pattern of 64th plywood with the grain going so I can bend it. I'd like to laminate a few pieces of 64th plywood in here just to toughen up this area, because what's going to happen, for sure, this is going to be weakened by the holes, and I want this to be relatively strong anyway. And what I'm doing is just, let me mark this. I can trim this. Like any pattern, you just keep taking away the hard spots until you have the shape that you think you want. And of course, if you cut too much off, just trace it and make a pattern a little bit bigger. Just common ordinary pattern making here, but I want to get a nice fit. Now I'm leaving this all oversized. Now that I have a pattern that kind of hugs all the areas that I want to duplicate this 2 more times so I'll have real good plywood here, and then I can cut my outlet holes. The reason, if I was to just leave this balsa wood, somebody would prick the plane up, boom, and that'd be it. We're going to glass on the outside and have plywood on the inside. And this will act kind of like a bulkhead too. It'll give some rigidity to the nose, so it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And you can bet I made up 10 pieces before I got one right. Don't think this goes on the first shot. Here's the first piece glued in. I still have to do the trimming, of course. Now I can just trace the same piece out. I have it already traced out, cut it out, and I'll actually have 2 pieces of 64th plywood. Boy, that fiberglass dust is a killer. And that should really stiffen that area up real nice. Now I'm just gonna, this is dried, I got 2 laminations on here, and I'm just gonna trim this with the Dremel. It's a little easier than trimming it with a razor. I put thin CA around all the edges and put a couple extra coats of thin CA all on this former, because don't forget this former is going to act like actually like a plywood former would in a normal fuselage, so I want everything as rigid as possible up here, and I'm going to cut the holes for the air outlets. I just want to dress these edges off. It's all nice plywood in there, double laminate, sealed up bulkhead. I'm ready to start laying out my exhaust outlets. Now, as soon as I get pretty much the shape that I want roughed in here, I want to seal the edge with thin CA. That'll keep it from deteriorating or while we're handling and the rest of the construction. And also, it'll, I hope, give me a little edge to work off while I'm doing the fiberglass work. This always gives you a little bit of a chance of getting a nice edge there. It'll also, when we go to do the glass, give us an edge to sand off. Now, whatever we want to do, we can always change these holes or make them fancier or put screening on them or something. But without the right amount of air exhaust, I think you're really going to run into a problem. These should be fine. Yeah, that really gives a nice edge. Now this is all left oversized. I didn't put the cowl back on. Just laying everything here. The blocks are a little oversized. The cowl's a little oversized. It's oversized around the nose ring. So that what actually will happen is I'm going to turn it over and we'll start working on the nose tomorrow. But all of this stuff, after the wing is in the body and the tail is in and all these blocks are glued in permanently, what will happen then is all these final little ice shavings and all this little block sanding will go together. Now, I kind of like the way this scoop looks like it's going to be real efficient in there. I don't know. We may or may not, if these holes aren't big enough, maybe I could even add a third hole here, but I think that'd weaken it. I don't know. I'm not going to do anything like that right now. I could also, if I wanted to, change. Now I'm looking through, and again, I've just been thinking about this for a while. This tube is too small. I found a piece of aluminum tube here. What I want to do is I want to wrap it with sandpaper first of all, and get these outlets to kind of taper back more, and then I can take the sandpaper off. Again, I'll think about this tonight. I'm not even going to do this tonight. What I originally intended to do is carve these in. I don't want to do that. I don't want to carve that back because I'm just not going to have the look that I want. I want to have this kind of, the way Strega is, have that recessed piece going back. So the first thing I'll do is I'll make a sanding block with some sticky back paper or glue some paper to this and just grind that outlet shape into it. Then I can take the sandpaper off, roll up either a balsa or a plywood tube, and again, I'll have plenty of time to think about this tonight. This will be a good thing to think about tonight while I'm snoozing and doozing and watching TV and everything, but I'll leave this out so I don't forget what it is that I originally intended, is just to get these scoops to taper further back. Similar to Strega anyway. I think that'll look a little more like in what we want with the Spitfire. Now this morning my model aviation comes in the mail. Sitting down at breakfast looking at it and I'm saying, second Spitfire in a year on the cover. Maybe they know something I don't know. Now last night, before I packed it up here, I came down to the shop. I had an idea in my mind of how I wanted to do this. I rolled up some 30-second sheet that was ammonized and just put some tape around it. I took some 64th plywood, ammonized it, and just ran it around a tube because I want to work on fancying up those air outlets today, and I just wanted to have some various diameters and various materials to work with till I can decide exactly what it is I want to do over there. By the way, we're having a little contest. If you can guess what we had for supper last night, you get a free picture of Dave Midgley taking a bath. Go ahead, take a wild guess. Now what I've done, I've already done it, is I've taken one of these stick and sand, these are sticky back sandpaper, and made up, because I want to be working on some ducting, I took a piece, just glue it right to a piece of copper tubing, bend it around and trim it, and a piece of aluminum tubing. This looks like a piece of tune pipe tubing from our tune pipe days. It makes excellent little sanding discs. Of course, once it wears out, you can just peel it off and you know, just replace it with either finer or different grit. The joint can be just a little bit lower. You don't want to have a high joint. A low joint is better. And something like this just for getting in corners, and then we can go work on those little scoop angles. And you can just angle this back as much as you really want to change the shape. Now one of the things that's difficult to do is keep these perfectly even. You have to constantly look for some kind of a reference point here. And you can really be creative here and dress this off as much as you like. Let me get a little look at what that looks like from the front. Now I want to make some kind of, and again this is where I have to go back and forth, some kind of little creative tubing from that wrapped balsa and plywood. I want to have a tubing edge here. I don't want to look in and see all this, whatever you want to call it, hardware or whatever. I want to have the illusion that this is a tube exhaust coming out the back. Now one thing that's not a great idea is when you wrap balsa, or you can see how this looks, when you wrap wet and wrap balsa with tape, it doesn't dry out like it does with the Ace Vantage, and I just relearned that today. So I'm putting this over the vacuum bench here, try to get some air over it so it'll be dry when I go to lay out my tubes. Now I just wanted to see how I like this tube effect. Took the 64th plywood, put a little lamination, a little strip down it. Used, actually what was good is having a sandpaper on there, and just in case any CA got down, it wasn't a problem. So I've used the tube for a mold. Let's see if you can see the joint here. So inside it's, let's see if I can get this a little closer. Kind of easy to make. I just want to see how I like the way this looks. Again, this is the kind of thing when you're doing little details like this, you have to try a couple of different approaches and see exactly how it is, you know, that's going to appeal to you. Now, any kind of an exhaust hole here is going to let air out, but we'd like to have something that really looks kind of slick and attractive rather than just, you know, like a hole you made with a cookie cutter or something. Now what I'm trying to do is I want to get the seam on the side that you won't see. I'm doing a little bit of test fitting here. The side that you really won't see will be just fine. You won't even see that seam. In fact, from the outside of the plane, the seam will be completely invisible. And I just want to see if I can somehow, well, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to have to use a little bit of body putty or something in there. Anyway, I'm tracing out where this really should get cut. And then I'm going to have to block sand the last little bit down. I'll get this up on the macro lens in a second. See, from this angle you won't even see that once it's trimmed and cut. Now, believe it or not, one of the things that was a pain in the ass to do was cut this, and I wound up using a parting wheel of all things. I want to get a tight fit here because obviously all these joints have to be oil tight, fuel proof. And I can fill that in with thick CA if I have to, if there's any gap at all, but I would like that nice gap-free fit, tight fit. Now I want to make sure too, anything past this bulkhead is relatively fuel proof, because I'm not going to be able to get back in here once the bottom block is on and fuel proof this, to make sure I have at least the first 6 inches kind of fuel proofed. And thin CA is fine for that, by the way. And it actually does add some strength, so it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And of course I'll just repeat the other side, and then this will be ready to do a nice sanding on and fill this in with maybe some epoxylite or some DAP, whatever. Now with the piece that's left over, I'm leaving plenty on here because I can always block sand it off. Making a little line where this actually is going to wind up being cut. And then where I want the cut in here. In fact, I ought to pull this in just a little bit. And I can cut even in here. And I'll still have enough material out here. Come on. Leave a little extra for sanding. I just talked to Jeff Stifel and he's got his village finished. He wants me to come over tonight and see his village, so may even get a minute or two of that on the video tonight. Okay, I'm just replicating this part here and making sure I get everything inside here fuel proofed. Now the thin CA really hardens up the 64th plywood. It turns it into a real, it gives it about twice the normal strength. It also fuel proofs it, so while I have this apart, it's a lot easier to get in here now and fuel proof this than it will be after the fuselage is all joined permanently. I'm going to have a little brace up in here when this block actually goes on. And this is actually serving a couple of purposes. One of the purposes is it's holding that cowling mount in place, acting as my ducting and acting as a former all at the same time for one low price. Now I'm just gluing some rough pieces of scrap in here any old way. Doesn't matter, we're going to sand this all out. This will just act as a little filler while I'm sanding these scoops down. Sanding dowels a little bit thinner than what we're using. I can dress off the edge real nice. Just get out any little nibs that are still inside the tube. Now once that's final sanded out and glassed, and this whole area will be glassed, this will be a perfect outlet. It's got a perfect edge and should have real good flow because it's a perfectly smooth tube. Of course, we'll just repeat the same thing on this side. Fill in with some little scrap blocks and then block sand the whole thing right back down. Now the only thing left is a couple little low spots. I'll put a little dap in there while I'm working on the next part. Another thing I want to do here is what will happen is in time, you know, when this is sitting on the ground, a little bit of oil will accumulate in here. I'm going to put a little tiny oil drain hole right in the bottom, right in the corner here, so that while the plane is sitting on its feet, if any oil does accumulate in there, it'll tend to run out the bottom of the bottom block. More little details. These are all little details that really make a plane, you know, just to me special anyway. I like the way that looks, by the way. That was the look I originally was looking for. And never think you get it on the first shot. It always takes time, back and forth, back and forth. It really does. Now I just drilled a hole for this drain, and what I'm doing, I'm marking up, you can see the mark on there, a piece of aluminum tubing. And I want to have the angle coming back so that the air will tend to pull out any little oil or fuel or anything that accumulates in there. Be like a self-draining boat here. Anyway, it will be a nice little touch. Now, of course, what'll happen if you go to do this with a Dremel tool, it heats the tubing up, and then it usually pops right out, so I'm going to block sand this out by hand. Actually, this will only need a couple little dots of DAP and relatively nice and clean. I have to tell you, I'm real happy the way this worked out. And you can bet, even little details like having that little drain in there, you know, that's what really, to me anyway, separates the real quality models from the ones that just slap together. So let's go out and fly and see how quick we can build this, and you know, the disposable Kleenex philosophy. And one of the things, believe it or not, I want to put that DAP on there next. One of the things people never, or you would not think it would be an important thing, and they never mention it. But then years later I find out, like one of the tips, one of the people that's bought quite a few videos says, you know what I found to be a tremendous big help? Is just taping the parts together so you can do all these fits. In other words, what he was doing is he was building a plane and waiting until the wing was in the body to carve the top block, or, you know, any number of things where it was inconvenient doing it that way. Well, let me tell you, I learned things just being around people like Joe Kay or Dave Midgley, people that have businesses, run businesses, Mike Rogers even, that have ways of organizing and doing things. Now, you would think this is not a significant thing, like doing all these fits, and every time you put the top block on, tape it in position. Now I can go get the cowling, I can put the cowling on, I can keep track of my fits. Pretend you're making a big jigsaw puzzle. If you were to wait until you had the wing and the body to start hollowing and fitting and, oh, forget it. Or another thing I've seen somebody do, will not mention any names, wait until the wing was in the body, they're sanding the whole fuselage down, and they come over here with the damn plane. Wendy, make a cowling for me. Wait a minute. A cowling for... Do the cowling while you can work on a plane like this. It's a lot easier. So some of the things, one of the benefits I would guess is, from watching videos or picking up ideas from virtually anybody, is the sequence of things that you go through to build a plane, to make it as easy as possible and as reasonable as possible. Life is hard enough. You don't have to make it any harder than it is. Now, one of the things I've been taking this on and off is getting all my spinner fits as close as can be. What I've done, and this is just a suggestion you might want to use on your own, I've left everything up around the nose here, maybe a 1/64 of an inch bigger than it has to be, including the bottom block. Now, when I go to install the bottom block, what I want to do is I want to put this bolt in, and this is really a good trick if you prefab parts like I do. Put this bolt in, let this bolt catch, and use this bolt as a, it's actually a jig or a fixture or whatever you want to call it. Oh, I see we have some hot stuff in there. Using this bolt actually to line up and hold the bottom block in place while you do the final glue. Of course, the wing would have to be in a body, but this is an excellent trick. This is an excellent way of doing it. Now I'm just looking this whole thing over here before I flip it over and start working on the top. Notice that, again, and this is important, all the blocks are just a little bit oversized so they can be squeezed into position and then final sanded. At this point in time, there's a little bit of a gap up here which I'd have to fill in with a little piece here. Cowl fit looks pretty decent. Nose ring piece looks pretty decent. So I guess we're ready to flip this over. I wanted to look inside here and see if you could see how nice that ducting looked in there. That was real nice. I like the way that worked out. And I got the little oil drain hole there. So ready to flip it over and start working on the top. Now I want to strip the mold down, and this will give us 5 nose pieces to choose from, and I'll go and fit them up. These are coming out of the mold so nice now, it's unbelievable. Especially the nose piece. This is nice. It's a SIG piece, and it leaves the SIG mark right on there. Everybody will wonder, how did he carve a piece of wood with that in there? Anyway, I'm going to trim this off camera. We've already done this enough times. And then get out all my nose pieces and see which one is going to fit the way I want it to fit up here. Now I took the best of these, the best of the molds that we had, and I'm going to give Joe a spare one too. I'll keep a spare one with each plane from this point on. That piece fit real nice. I got 2 of them out of the 5 that fit real nice, almost with no trimming at all. Real good fit up here. That should blend right in. And the next thing I want to do, I want to get this. This is that multi-layered epoxy turtle deck that we worked on the other day. I want to get a look at this and see how this is going to fit up. Now, one of the problems when I laminated this was I got a little bit of glue on the front edge. It chucked off a little piece of wood here. I want to clean this up before I start fitting it. And there was a little bit, I put extra epoxy on the spine. This is really rigid. This really has some good integral strength. You don't have to worry about that piece breaking. I want to get the red line on here and get this trimmed. Normal, trim it off, nothing new here. And we can start to get this piece fit up here. We're really making some good progress today. Now this worked out really well. The turtle deck fits right on. And it just doesn't get a whole lot better than this. Now what I want to do, I want to mark this block roughly where this part ends. And one of the things I have to do is determine, because I'm going to carve the canopy mold next, I want to make sure I'm working off a 90-degree angle. And of course I'm not, so I better get this corrected right now so I don't make up a crazy kind of mold. Well, in fact, let me see how I want to do this. They're both off. Because keep in mind, the canopy block, the mold has to go right onto the back of this. Okay, we can live with that. And I'm going to leave just a little bit extra material on there. This actually goes over that right now. In fact, I have an even better idea. Let me put this up on a video. I can real carefully just notch this. I didn't even think about that. Just put a little notch on each side. This may be a good way of attaching the blocks. It's almost like a furniture joint here. See, these are little ideas you get as you go along. Very seldom do you come up with this idea until you actually really need it. Now that plugs in there. A little bit more. Again, we're going to want to put some canopy details in here, so I want to have all these little fits relatively good. Oh yes. Ah! Boy, I bet even Midgley would be impressed with that. That notch is right in there. Boy, is that nice. Even I like that. Pro stunt. Now the next thing I want to do is, everything looks real good here. I want to lay out my block. I got to go over and get the plans and see what the side view is, and then I'm going to have to replicate this on one side of the block because there's a glass window on a Spitfire that goes back. I want to replicate that, and I also want to have the Malcolm hood and the flat piece in the front, so I'm going to need to figure out how I want to do this, but I'll start by getting a big block. It always starts with a big block. Let's see what I want to do. I want to capture that side view. I need to come back and figure out how far. Actually, what I'll do is I'll mold this whole piece in one piece, and then I can paint this part in. But I need to develop this curve, and I need to come down to here. Now I can just start by, I'll make a tracing of this side view first of all. Look at this, this is a real nice block, by the way. What I'll do, I'll make a tracing of this with tracing paper. Leave it a little bit bigger than it has to be because I have to allow for this curvature. Trace it on the side view, and then I can go whack that. In other words, I can get all that material off in one shot on a bandsaw. Now I have a piece of Mylar. The first thing I want to do is get a half-ass straight edge on here. In other words, the first thing you always want to do is get as much of the big material off of the block as possible. Let's assume we're going to start here, even though this is not accurate. We're not going to start here. I want to leave myself extra. And this, I'll continue this down into what'll be the black, the part that's going to get taken off of the top block. and this will be the accurate height. Now, of the block, I've taken and traced the back piece out on, so I have a little bit of an idea of where that's going to end. Even though this piece is going to get laminated back over here, there isn't that much of a taper that it really matters. I just have to take into account that there is a little bit of a taper. And I want to make the canopy a little bit oversized if I can. Okay, now I can trace this out on the side. I need to put a little piece up on top. Now, with the rough cuts done, I have this plotted. I need to get maybe a 1/4 inch piece and just glue it up here to allow for a little more curvature in that Malcolm hood. So let me get a piece of scrap and just laminate it on there. Actually, I found a little piece of scrap from the piece that I lopped off the front here. Now, before I make a joint in a block, I want to get both sides as flat as possible. This will give me enough material to work with. Now, even though I've left all of this a little oversized, I'm pretty much from the side view, I'm satisfied that I'm close enough. Now, the next step I need to know is I need to know how far back on this, where my turtle deck is going to end, and where the canopy mold is going to begin. I need to put a little scratch on the fuse. Get rid of this. Get an idea how thick the fuse is there. Remember, if anything, I want to have the mold just a little bit on the big side. Now see, I can check that dimension in the back and then just continue that line up along the front. That'll give me the width. Now I have all the material off the side, and I can pretty rough, I'll probably even do it with a 26 blade. It's not that much, only about a 1/16 of an inch. I can then rough that off and start getting these ice shavings in there. Now I can just get a rough idea here. This is the roughest of ideas where on this I'm going to have to go, just by drawing a rough pen line here. This need not be real accurate. In fact, I can't even see it, it's so accurate. You can see the sketch in the wood. Now that roughly gives me the contour that I need to work down to, and then my canopy shape, all in one shot. Now before any carving job, first thing I like to do, always get a brand new blade in there, but just look at where I can take big chunks off. Get the big chunks off first. The Spitfire is a relatively complex canopy, and I really want to take my time ice shaving this down to where I get the look that I want. And then I'm going to ask Dave Midgley to mold us up some canopies, so anybody that's still building a Spitfire or wants to build one, or maybe even use this canopy on an Obler, who knows. The canopies will be available. Plus, The neat thing is you don't have to make the mold yourself. You just send me a $50 bill and I'll ship you a canopy. Send Midgley a $20 bill, whatever. $2,000. These things are getting expensive. Now, using the guidelines I have, those red lines, I can just start lopping off material here, nice and easy. You know, this is all going to disappear in the final product, so we may as well get as much of this off as we can. Maybe I can even get Midgley to videotape the actual molding of a canopy and show how he does it. Like to see that. If you're listening, just do it, man. He's also going to try to make some out of, I think, 2 different kind of materials, so that we have some choices here, and one thicker and one thinner, of course. So pretty much we're just going back and forth, lopping off the big stuff. Now, I got this about as roughed out as much as I'm going to really be able to with the blade. What I'm going to do is just finalize what I have here now with some rough sandpaper, and I want to end it right at this. This is actually going to be part of the turtle deck line, so I want to get around that and just get that contour in there next. Again, this is the area that has to mate up to the turtle deck. I'm just going to work down that line a couple of thousandths. I'm just looking to see if I have the right contour and the right clearance here. This is the turtle deck, of course, and I'm doing it on a flat surface, and I want to start working on that Malcolm hood. It kind of looks like a like a 747 here, at least at this point. Just a question of sanding, and trying to keep the contour. Always do it with your hand. Check that the contour on both sides. I see this side is a little higher. And once you master the technique, you can build any model with any canopy. You know, like Harold Price made that Bolt and Paul Defiant with all the ribs in a canopy. Boy, it was awesome. You know, it's just a shame that nowadays not many people, there aren't many real modelers left that really even have any appreciation of things like canopies or detailing or scale, realism, anything. It's just lost into a world of ironing board stunt ships, so at least we'll try to keep it alive as long as possible until a final flame goes out in this semi-scale thing. But in the meantime, who cares? They don't appreciate it, it's just too bad, it's their loss. Now always feel, see which side is the high side. Now getting that transition point where one shape ends and the bubble begins is like on a cardinal, getting that point on a cardinal just right. Difficult. I want to start getting that flat in for the windshield here, Spitfire windshield. The Spitfire has kind of a flat windshield right in the front, and we're not making it totally scale, but I want to simulate that anyway. Just looking at some of the fits along the side. I want to have the flat windshield, of course. I got the right fit at the turtle deck back there. And I'm really finished for the day here. I'm just going to clean up and going to come back and work on this tomorrow. We're going to go see Stifle's Village tonight. The Stifle machine. Now I'm finished for the day, but what I want to look at is, at the end of every day, I always like to piece everything together, lay it out on a workbench, take a look at what it's going to look like when it's finished. Of course, that's going to fit back in. No, I can't put this in now, but anyway. And then what I do is I try to get this picture in my mind's eye of exactly what this is going to look like. Take out the old Spitfire book and see if there's any other details I can incorporate in here. You know, there's a lot of webbing around the canopy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to include that, but well, let me show this up close. See, I'd like to include that flat windshield part. I don't know if I can. Probably going to either try to paint these on or do something here. And then that back window. I want to include that back window in here. So there's an awful lot left to do on this. There's just details within details. You know, while I'm over at Stifle's tonight, I could be dreaming about Spitfires instead of paying attention to what he's talking about. Anyway, later. Now in today's mail, I got some great photos here from Bob Lipscomb. It's from Santa Rosa, California. Check out the louvers. In fact, the caption he wrote on the back of the pictures is, "Are those louvers really functional?" That is one slick thing. Hey, check it out. Here's some more photos, and I'm looking at the it's a Super Tiger 46. Cowling is epoxy, carbon fiber. Look at this nose section. Look at the louvers. Midgley, now listen, pay attention. Would this look great on a Cardinal or on a something? I don't know. Let's see if we can get this focused in here. Check these louvers out. I think that'd just be spectacular. Again, this is how you get ideas. You get people send in ideas, and I'm already thinking about them. More pictures, and these I'll just go right down the list from Bob Lipscomb. Of course, I'll send these on to Stunt News. See if Tom wants to publish any of them. Look at this. This is a beautiful. The lettering, everything is beautiful. And I'm just going to read this. It says it flies great. A little beefy, says Fancher. Fancher, you're a little beefy. Model aviation plans, extended wingtips, white acrylic lacquer, pink polyurethane. Nice finish. Check this out. And listen, anybody doesn't like this plane, hey, too bad. I like it. And we've got more. A Novi 3 for Classic. Oh, check the construction out. Yes. Yes. I'll take it. Bob, put it in a box. Send it right over to me. And he made a cowling with Jeff Stifle. And hey, speaking of Stifle, I still have to see him tonight. Look at this. Cute. And of course, this is a traditional stunter, a Forerunner. And he says, much too much acrylic lacquer. Yes, we all know what much too much acrylic lacquer is all about. We've all experienced that, that's for sure. A Go Devil with an Orwick. And this is a funny picture here. It says this is the world's fastest speed ship. Nelson, custom engine, speed classified, will actually do loops in 8s. You can see the exotic cowling on this here. Look at the front view of this. And anyway, we'll close this out with guess what? Bob Lipscomb and his cat. Now the cat is 11 years old and Chelsea is 16 years old. And he says affectionately the cats are not happy in this picture. It looks like he's got them hot stuffed to the floor. Bob, when they don't want to pose, you know what you do? Don't feed them for a couple of days and then they get real friendly. Anyway, thanks a lot, Bob. Great pictures. Thanks a whole lot. And I'll be passing them on to Stunt News. Now these photos are from Germany, from Uwe Degner, who, from the looks of this, is building up one Super Cardinal, and he sent in a nice little set of photos. Of course, he's got the engine pads and the Tiger 51. Now you can look at, and this is just some of the things under construction here. Some of the beautiful workmanship. Really nice, real nice workmanship. Now check this out. More construction with the rods, the rod method as the wings being built. The thing we all love most, seeing the plane in silver, and boy do we love when the wing is in silver. Oh my God. Another shot of the plane. Hey, look at the cowling. I just noticed this too. Midgley, check the cowling and the landing gear out. Real nice. That's great. But that really does capture the look of the Cardinal there. That is a Cardinal. And now the part that we always love. The plane being finished. Boy, oh boy, this is beautiful. Look at the nice lettering even. I don't know if I can focus in on that lettering. It's all very, very bright colors. Purples, blues, yellows. Cardinal, look at that, beautiful. Uwe Degner of Germany. Now Uwe has probably the world's biggest collection of windy videos. And it looks like he's really getting his money's worth out of them, that's for sure. I think he has probably 100 videos. This really looks good though. And I've encouraged him to share them with all the people in Europe. And here's a... Hey, Uwe's got a motorcycle. My kind of guy. Motorcycle. Nice planes. Friendly, and this is one of the nicest parts of this hobby. When you have friends like this that, I don't know, they just send you stuff for Christmas, pictures, stuff I'd never be able to see otherwise. He's sent a lot of pictures in too. Uwe, thanks a whole lot. In fact, you know what? I'm going to send him a couple of Spitfire videos, get him turned on to the Spitfire. He sent in that big Spitfire book, by the way. Well, we're going to try to get over to Stifles and see his village. Now, he's told me that my village is nothing but a putzy little village, and his is twice as big, and he has twice as many buildings and trains and everything, so we're going to go see. We'll find out. Anyway, Pro Stunt headquarters at night, the night of the big snow. You ready to go? Go see Mr. Stifles' village. Stifleville. I love this house. I love my wife. I love my village. I love my Red Baron. Oh my God. Hey, you can see the tree through the window. All right, Champ, you've seen my house.
Here she is again at a different house.
We were caught robbing Stifleville.
Hi there. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas.
Get out of here, would you?
Where's the
He
village?
doesn't let you live with
Tell them you don't have pizza, we're still waiting.
Where's the pizza? Let's get... Oh, he's got a mountain this year. Oh, wow.
beautiful.
And he's got the Gerald Champ Airport here. Without the Mustang, by the way.
Actually, last year was pretty filled in. No,
You didn't have the mountain?
No.
No, you didn't have a mountain last year. Is this a real old one or is this a repro?
That's a real one.
This is the one you had when you were a kid, right? did a nice job on the village. And what is that, all styrofoam up there?
Yeah, has
The
that
upper
look.
level? Beautiful.
I hot wired it.
Yeah, it looks great.
I painted it a couple of different colors.
It really does look good. Yeah, no kidding.
Hey, Pete.
What was that?
Peter! Just ran out today and replaced a piece of track. I found a K-line deal.
Yeah, that's the old whistle. I have a couple of them too. They're nice.
I don't like it.
Oh no, the old one is better, believe me.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
It's got a little Santa up here, cute. Even I don't have a little Santa. Nice village. I know people in California don't build what are you doing, wrecking the trains? We're here 5 minutes, the computer's broken and the train's derailed.
We're from New Jersey. And I said, no, it can't be him.
What they do, like rest?
Stifle spares no expense for Christmas dinner. He's having pizza.
We wanted to
Alright,
check
so
on
go
your
to the
prostate.
Dave Cook's favorite boy.
Check on his prostate.
So tell us the story here.
Yeah,
This is great.
a friend of
Put
mine,
that
Wendy,
up.
told me that this pizza's good for your prostate.
You won't have any problem. Look at this. He's dancing in a German beer festival. What an idiot! Oh, look at him over here! Oh, Jesus! Oh, man! Oh, God! What a pig!
Did they tell you what to do? Or they...
Yes.
Three of us.
Oompa, 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 oompa,
He
oompa.
got up there.
Oh,
and
Stifle, I don't
running
believe it.
down. I couldn't even get my food. I just had like a half a
Oh,
plate. food.
God.
I came running down to get the
Pizza for
camera.
Christmas
Wait,
dinner at Jeff's.
Oh, you got you took.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I came running down. Is the red light? Oh,
Yeah.
there it is.
This is what Jeff won in the Oompa contest.
This is a German.
Jeff's Oompa.
It was in Viagon.
Oh, man. Jeff, you build any new planes lately?
That's all right.
They wanted to leave.
Now, a lot of people don't know that Jeff is still in the world of stunt. This is the Big Jim 747. That's Stifle's son.
But like Carmen does. I always say them.
You can't, hey, be careful, you're gonna break Jeff's stuntship. He won't be able to go to the Nats this year. He believes this bullshit. This is why kids don't grow up and want to be stunt flyers. They play with radio control models. And there's the guilty guy right there. Buys his son a radio control model. Buy him control lines! Now I'm back from Stifleville. We had a great time over there. And boy, is that... His plane is still hanging on the wall, his PM. I hope he comes back to the hobby this summer. He's been into gliders for a while. Lose the gliders and get back into stunt. Anyway, this is my Christmas present from a really good friend, Richard Neal from New Mexico. He's the one that shoots all the videos that I have every year for the VSC. Obviously, I don't have the money to go to VSC and live it up with the high lifers, so he videotapes it and lets me share it through the video. He also sent some really cool videos, some Oshkosh stuff, and this run to, however you say this, Rio Udoso. Every year he sends me one of these shirts. And by the way, I do wear these, Richard. I wear them constantly. He, of course, has more Windy tapes than Windy, so appreciate it a whole lot. The other thing I was doing, came down the other night, putting all my stuff away, and I was thinking about the canopy, thinking this is really, looking at the pictures. Actually, I'll tell you the truth. I was sitting in the bathroom reading Spitfire books, and thinking this has to be a little bit lower and trying to figure a way I can dress this off. More work on that next time we get to do a session. But anyway, thanks to Rich, thanks to everybody that sent in nice gifts and calls. Now, I got a little bit of time here today, so I got to just really look at the Spitfire, and again, don't tell anybody, I sit in the bathroom all morning reading these books and getting all inspired and everything. Then I come out here, look at the canopy, I say, needs to be changed. So I'm going to look at the magazine here actually and do a lot of this. By the way, this tape that Rich sent in, the custom car tape, I really like it. Great music too, Rich. I guess that's one of the nice things about this hobby, is not only do a lot of people out there share the interest in model planes that we all seem to share, but there's a lot of other aspects of our life, and like in my case, the village. An awful lot of people that I know seem to enjoy the villages. I enjoyed seeing Jeff's village over there. He changes it every year like I do. And I guess there's other things, dollhouses, and God, Joe Adamusco built a dollhouse for his niece. We all share the common interest of modeling. Modeling is such a nice thing, no matter what aspect of it you enjoy. And I know other people out there that enjoy radio control, gliders. Jeff's been into gliders lately. There's just so many nice things in the world of modeling. Anyway, this is the kind of thing that I'll spend a lot of time over by the sanding block till I get that contour. It's just a question of going over and over and over and over until it looks like what's in the picture. But there's another aspect to this, and I ought to mention this. And this is even more difficult than building a scale model. When you're building a fantasy model like the Red Baron or Strega, it isn't important to capture the scale contour. You could take a picture of Strega, put it in a photo enlarger, and build that plane. Well, the trick is to make it that it's aerodynamically correct, that it weighs the correct weight, and that it'll fly good. And a lot of times you have to make these compromises. Now, one of the things we have to compromise, I can't really make a scale canopy. A scale canopy is not an appropriate part of a stunt ship. All the details and stuff, I would spend enough time, I probably could make another airplane. So what I'm trying to do is just do the fantasy, an impression of it. And this is relatively difficult. It's really, really more involved to make something that in effect is a caricature of what you're doing. It's actually making a scale Spitfire would be a lot easier than making one that has to fly, one that has to be aerodynamic enough and light enough, and yet from 10 feet away look like a Spitfire. And this canopy is an integral part of that. If this canopy were scale, it would probably weigh 10 ounces with all the ribbing and all the details. Well, we need to make this and not have all the details weigh any more than they have to, really. Now I'm going to final sand this out, maybe even get a coat of epoxy on it today. I only have a little bit of time. Everything here is just totally crazy now. It's just unbelievable. Company's coming over. We're going to see another person that has a nice village tonight. My friend Art Thomas. I don't know if you've seen him on the tape. He makes a village every year. Now, of course, take it over to the book and see how close you are. Yeah, I like that a lot better. Now I want to take what I hope will be almost a final mold here, trace out. I want this to be a little bit oversized, so I have some material, and of course so Midgley has some extra height to the mold in case we need it. So it'll just be an insurance piece on here. You really don't even need this. I'll cut this out with the jigsaw and then I'll tack glue that right on. Now I just want to join that. Now I want to just put a thin coat of CA on the wood to harden it up before I fiberglass it. Just putting a thin CA over the whole thing, let it dry. Let it dry without kicker. If you want it, you could wipe it with a paper towel. The idea here is to get a good bond into the wood. Now I'm block sanding out this first coat of CA, and then I want to fiberglass this, and maybe I can even get this glass done right now. Squeeze this into my program here, and this can be drying overnight. Obviously I want to get this off to Midgley as soon as possible so he can work on molding us up a bunch of canopies. By the way, if somebody out there would like a canopy, even if you're not going to use it on a Spitfire, if you're going to use it on an SV11, say, just give me a call or give Midgley a call. What's the difference? Price will probably be the same either way. Anyway, I guess you can tell I like these custom cars, and Richard Neal definitely is a cool guy. I wish I had the money to get into custom cars, but you know, that's another nice thing about stunt. You can have all the fun of custom cars without going for the $10,000 this and the $5,000 that, and you release the same creative energy without paying the price. He also sent a tape of, actually sent 3 tapes of a contest out his way with my old buddy Lou Walgast, and boy, if there's ever was a person in the hobby that I love, it's Lou Walgast. He's the one got me back in the hobby. So if you see Lou Walgast, tell him thanks a lot for bringing Windy back in the hobby. He's a cool guy. All right, we got this sanded. This is ready for fiberglassing now. Okay, the last thing I want to do here before I glass this is put a little, I want to have this so I can put it in a vise. Just be easier to hold it since there'll be no place that won't be glass to hold it. Now I want to put this in a vise for working on it. This will hold it up while I'm glassing it. Now I can just use up scraps here since it's just such a small piece. Well, I'll tell you, there are some cool cars on this tape. I wish I had the money. Now, of course, I'll use the epoxy where one tube is bigger than the other that we always use for fiberglassing. Now, Midgley has told me that in the past, the molds that he's made, one of the problems they have is that after some amount of canopies are made off of them, the finish, because it's constantly exposed to the heat, the laminates from the wood. So what I'm trying here is to get the thin CA to make a good penetration into the wood, and then the glass cloth will kind of hold it together, I hope. Again, if it doesn't, one of the things I can certainly do, it's not out of the realm of doing it, is to make a female mold out of plaster like we made the cowlings. I don't know if he can even use female molds, but we have a lot of choices here. This will be our test, though. Looks like President Nixon's on the phone. You believe this? Now I'm trying to get the first layer of glass drawn out with some heat, of course. Hair dryer on a low setting. Let's see if I can get the second layer on here. Now we're hoping we're going to be able to make a lot of canopies out of one mold here. So this is why I'm trying to make this like a semi-permanent mold. If Midgley has trouble with this, I can always carve up another one. Or we can always go on to... one of the things I think Dave could consider if he has trouble with this mold is we can use that tune pipe, whatever you want to call it, that resin that we use that goes to 500 degrees, and give it a coat with that. I don't have any left here though, so Dave will have to get some. Let me get a third coat on here. Oh boy, stuff is sticky. Once you get a little bit on your hands, it's a pain in the neck. There's no way you can fool around. You just got to get it on. There you go. And since we don't really care how light this is, we can just trowel it on. Boy, it's great. I'll tell you, working on Ventrini's big tsunami and stuff, when you don't have to make things feather light, boy, can you really do some modeling. Holy mackerel. It's the one aspect of this event that's really challenging, is how to do these things and keep them from turning into, into flower pots. So this combined, this will be the 5 layers of the real light fiberglass cloth. And I think that's all we're going to need. Now we can hit it with some high heat. Let that start cooking off. I really don't see anything to making a canopy that, is really at a skill level of most people. Of course, if you're looking to just do that, do it in the least amount of time, just paint the canopy on like a cardinal, and I've done that. But this is the extra little details that, separate the real modelers from the paint on the canopy crew like me. And of course, the best is to be able to do it both ways. I think this is going to work well. And for all the people out there contemplating building Spitfires, the plans will be available. And we can supply you with a canopy, of course. And maybe some molded shells and whatnot. Who knows? I'm just trying to level out the last little bit. And of course, once this dries, the object of doing this, I'm kind of rushing this through, is I want to get this mold up to Midgley so he has time to work with this. And as I said before, I hope Dave will do some videotaping of making up even some other canopy. It doesn't have to be this one, just so we can have it in our little inventory of stuff. And if you have any questions molding canopies, call Dave up direct. Call him at his house late at night, in fact. Now all that's left is to clean all the tools with alcohol, clean the trowel. I'll let this sit up by a heating vent overnight. Come back to this, well, not tomorrow. Tomorrow we're not going to work here, but it'll be 2 days before we get to do some more work on this. Now this looks like it dried up real nice. Of course, it's been sitting up by the heating vent. So the next step is, of course, clean off all the edges. We'll get a final sanding on this. We've got 5 layers of glass cloth on here, so this should make for a very good plug for a mold. I just want to get the edges cleaned up. And of course, any of the glass that hangs off usually comes right off this way. Certainly a part of modeling that's long since died by the wayside, of making canopies for each model. I remember years ago, though, everybody had a custom canopy mold. Nowadays, everybody just buys something off the shelf. Not the same. Now, the next thing I'm doing is getting this whole thing sanded down with 220 grade and a block to try to get out any lumps or bumps that are in the mold. I like to have as smooth a surface as possible for, you know, the canopy material to rest on. It just takes a little time, and then I'll finish it off with 400. You can see how let's get this on the macro lens now. Right here, it's still a little bumpy. I want to get it down to where it's all perfectly smooth before I ship it off to Midley. Now I'm finishing this up with some 600 paper and some M600, just trying to get a nicely polished surface on here. Now I don't know if Midley is going to need to auto primer this. I don't think not. This is really smooth, and I think the auto primer might not be as durable as the epoxy itself, but this will be in the mail now a couple of days. On the way up to him, the epoxy will cure even more. And we'll see as soon as we get these back just how these ran. Again, it's a lost art. This is one of those, when I was a kid, everybody made canopies. Boy, everybody. Harold Price had canopy molds. John DeTavio, everybody. Now, it seems like guys don't even know how to do this anymore, but including me. Anyway, a nice smooth plug. Bob Gialdini was the one who originally made me the first Nobler canopies, but now that Midgley is all set up to do this, he has vacuum forming equipment. There's no point in letting anybody but the best do it. And Midgley, you're the best. These canopies better be super, or Adamusco is going to give you a good, shall we say, ass whipping. Anyway, this will be about ready to box up in about 10 minutes, and I'll run off to the post office. Again, it's all the little details that make a plane unique, make it just a little bit different than the old ironing board stunner of today that's so popular. It's modeling at its best. Now I'm just feeling for little spots that might not be perfect on here. This feels real good. I think we're going to get some nice canopies off of this. And keep in mind, you know, I've said it before, I guess, if anybody really wants to use, this probably would work good on many different designs, or, you know, little improvised designs of your own. But we'll have the canopy mold, and it's one more thing that we have in inventory here. So we're coming up on the end of this tape, and I'm going to finish this up, take a look at what we have so far, maybe give Adamusco a call to come pick up his stuff. He can actually get ready to, I got one fuselage almost finished. He can pretty much get ready to start putting a wing in the body. I taped all of Joe's parts together. I'll give him a call this afternoon or tonight. Key thing is I've left everything just a little bit oversized so he can get the last little bit of sanding in after the model's assembled. You wouldn't want to get this stuff all paper thin sanded right now. At the same day, I'll get this off to Midgley so he can start making up some, hopefully, a nice supply of canopies we can work with. And boy, oh boy, the project moving along here. I'm really happy. I'm really getting excited about wanting to see what this guy's going to look like when he's finished. Now on the next tape, I won't have enough tape to do it here. Getting near the end of the tape. I got some carbon fiber, but this is a carbon fiber tuned pipe. This is the mat they use to make the pipe, and I can cut this in half and maybe get 2 cowlings out of it. I don't know. Just one thing I want to experiment with. That'll be coming up in the next couple days. I got the cowling mold ready with some release agent in there. Got plenty of ace bandages. I need to make up another turtle deck for the second fuselage. I need to make up another laminated front piece and start looking at what I'm going to use on the second fuselage here as far as getting the parts. The laminated one worked well on that first fuselage, so Kind of happy the way that worked out. On the next tape I'll start working on, this will be the second body. Cowling, canopy, blocks. By then maybe I'll have the canopies back. I'll start working on maybe getting some canopy detail made. I got John DeTavio's top block. The mold is perfect. I can use the same block now for the top and the bottom block and just cut it out for the cowling. That was a little plus. I've got about 15 parts molded up here for other people, myself. I'll be passing some of these on to Midgley, of course, see if he can use them in any way. Maybe Joe can use some extra ones, I don't know, but that's coming up too. A lot of stuff coming up, just a very busy time of year. Now we're at the end of this tape, and I just have one final thing to say. Christmas is tomorrow. I have a lot of family stuff, family planning to do here. And boy, I'll tell you something, this woman has made my life just as good as it possibly can be, and she has just been the best modeler's wife. She's just been the best wife of all time. And I love her a lot. I want to dedicate this tape to her. And wait till she sees what she's getting for Christmas. And Dave, I hope you're going to be working on these canopies and making me the best canopies on the planet. Oh my God, canopies. Anyway, we'll be getting those back probably by the end of the next tape, and we're really looking forward to seeing that. Hey, just one final thing here to all my friends, all my enemies, everybody. One of the things Model Aviation will be publishing the Tsunami article. John Pothier is working on a really well-documented little write-up for us, and I really have to thank him ahead of time for all the help he's been, of course. If anybody has any really nice pictures of Tsunami that we can use in a magazine article, I'd really like to have them. So it looks like it's going to be published within the next calendar year. And just closing this tape out now with some special thanks to Joe. Christmas is coming, and boy oh boy, this has been probably one of the most fun years of my life. This guy is really fun to work with. And I don't care what your wife says about you, you're a good guy, Joe. Alright, see you on the next tape, guys.